flooding. Top temperatures of 10 to 13 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. Minimal contact in stadiums shouldn't stop the usual suspects from going down. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
You're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through until 5 o'clock in the company of the former Republic of Ireland captain David Meyler, the broadcaster and journalist Johnny Ward, and the opposition analyst with Dundalk, Shane Keegan. You can text us 53106 about football. You can tweet us at Off the Ball. You can watch us on our social channels for Periscope on Twitter at Off the Ball, on YouTube, Facebook, and on the new OTB Sports app. Search OTB Sports in your app store now to download it for iOS and Android. Our football coverage brought to you with thanks to Paddy Power. For more information on responsible gambling, visit dunlewy.net. Lads, good afternoon. Thursday night, we'll start with that. England 3-0 defeat. David, if we had Seamus Coleman, James McCarthy, Colin Robinson, Aaron Connolly, would it have made much of a difference in your view?
Yeah, of course it would have. Those players you're speaking about, like certainly Seamus is captain, so he's going to bring that, experience and knowledge. Look, he's been a regular in the Premier League for the last 10 years. Of course, James has been around for a long time, played a lot of games. Obviously, Aaron Connolly, exciting young player who's burst onto the scene the last probably 18 months. And Callum Robinson, of course, I won't forget him. So yeah, look, it's different players, different threats, different abilities. We can talk about the what ifs, of course. Like, in my opinion, I think they would have made a difference, but they weren't there, so there's no point really discussing it in too much depth.
Yeah, no problem. But what do we make of it overall, lads, the performance? Is the cause for concern in your view, lads, or is it the fact that even Adam Brown is now out of the Wales game with the COVID issue? Just not really running for Stephen Kenny right so far.
Yeah, look, Jerry, I mean, you couldn't write it the look that he's been getting over the last while. Now, that's not to write off everything completely based on bad luck. But, I mean, the crack with the amount of players we've lost to COVID, throw in the couple of injuries and what happened to Seamus the other night. I mean, you see in a lot of circles at the moment, even if you're looking at GAA circles at the moment, teams are nearly writing off a year. If you have a bit of success, great. If you don't, just brush it under the carpet and start again next year. To a certain extent, I think a lot of people are somewhat willing to take almost that line with Stephen at the moment that, okay, look, it's very, very hard to be overly critical of performances and results so far at the moment. There's just so much going on and he's suffered so much bad luck that I think under any other circumstances, I think he would be under a hell of a lot more pressure than he is at the moment. But I think people are reasonably understanding of the crazy situation he's found himself in,
And Johnny, what was your report card on Thursday?
Ooh, right. If you want to put
the pregnant pause,
I'd be one of these very encouraging, kind of benign teachers. Like, wouldn't be a lad to be dishing out corporal punishment or anything like that, like the old days. So, but it's still, I mean, at best it was a C minus, really, wasn't it? It was, the start was good. The football in the first sort of 15 minutes, when it's kind of shadow boxing a bit at that stage. Darryl Horgan, Alan Brown, Adam Ida, and our midfield to an extent had played well, but ultimately when Egan went off, you look at our back four at that stage. We have Cyrus Christie, Doherty playing out of position, Egan gone off, so Darragh O'Shea, as much as I'm a big fan of him, comes in, and Duffy, who, let's be honest, is just so out of sorts at the moment. I'm not sure if it's to do with just he lost his dad this year. He's having a terrible time, but for whatever's going on with him, he's just really, really struggling. And he's if a team is as kind of weak as its weakest link, Duffy is a weak link at the moment. He gave the ball away a lot, and it was kind of, I wouldn't give out too much about the first goal, but he was out muscled, which you wouldn't necessarily expect from him. But he just looked really shaky. So in the context of that, when you have like a real thrown together back four with the talisman out of sorts, playing, to my mind, a very good English team with a truly gifted player in Jack Grealish up against us. And then you tally that with all of the players that were out, the loss of McGoldrick, obviously, in somewhat surprising circumstances, the outrageous bad luck that we've had, and then you mix in the fact that we're still trying to change our philosophy in terms of how we play. I'd be a bit like Shane if not writing the year off, I'd certainly write that game off to an extent. But there were some positives. I think Adamida, his touch for that chance that Horgan set up for O'Dowda, I thought that was really, really a sign. Even a little thing like that can tell you a lot about a player. Brilliant touch. A lot of the stuff he did was good. I think Darragh O'Shea is a great prospect. I think sooner or later he'll be playing for Ireland. And there were some other encouraging aspects as well, but we were battered.
David, the mindset of the players at the moment, Stephen Kenny was interestingly speaking about that he would love to have musicians involved and like the downtime with the players. I remember you spoke to us on one of the previous shows about when you beat Wales, you flew back to Dublin and you had the crack. Is it maybe like a lacking in a bit of fun for the lads right now?
It's difficult. Look, I think with... Like you're talking about the time when we beat Wales, of course, then, you know, we go back, some of us go back to Dublin, you have the crack. Of course, we were trying to qualify for the World Cup. That was a very important game. So there's, like, I imagine we've all seen the video circulating of Scotland after, you know, their win on penalties. Do you know how big of a boost that is? You know, the first time they qualified in 22 years. We've not really had a moment since, you know, 16. You can talk about the games in the qualifying group. And then, of course, you know, the result against Italy, that big, huge lift. These group of players have probably not had a big, well, they haven't. There's no point, you know, saying otherwise. You know, a massive result under Stephen to kind of galvanise everything. Like that was kind of like I sat down with my father the other day, or I was on the phone to him, and we were chatting about the England game. And he said it's a tough game to take on. It was a tough game. England are a very good team, and if you go through that team, if you just stop and kind of step back, right? Like they're all playing week in, week out in the Premier League. Of course, I know Sancho's in Germany or whatever, right? But they're going to try and win the Euros next year. We're not going to the Euros. All those lads that were there playing, there's probably 2-3 of them will start the Euros. The rest are probably fighting from 12, you know, from number 12 to 23 to get into the squad. So it was kind of like, and then you look at our side, we have 5 lads say playing in the Championship. Some aren't playing regularly. So Stephen's at the building, you know, at the building of a foundation. He's trying to change things, and as much as the lads have said there, 2020 will be a write-off, regardless if people don't want it to be. It will be, but it will be. These 2 games, we just need, I think, a positive result to lift the morale around the place. Look, we've all spoken or seen Matt Doherty's interview. You could tell the frustration and that, you know, it's another game where they've not scored. You know, it's another game that got beat. There's kind of that frustration is creeping in. So if they can get a good result against Wales or Bulgaria, that will stand them in good stead. Now, the big thing is what happens if they don't get a result. You know, you have to look at both sides of it. But we believe that they will get a result, because I can't see it turning.
But David, I agree 100% with what you're saying there. Like the strength, like England, as much as we might like to admit at the moment, you know, they're probably top 5 countries in the world. I mean, what was the justification for taking that game? Like, is it purely geography?
Well, by all accounts, when a friendly is placed, I can't remember who we were meant to play. England were meant to play New Zealand. I can't remember who Ireland were meant to play, and obviously it was called off because of COVID. But you have to play so many games, you know, due to FIFA rankings. I imagine Johnny will know a lot more than I will, but all the lads are kind of based in England. You know, it's like pop down to London, you know, and in that sense it's probably easy. And then look, as Stephen said in I think it was the night before the match, like he'd spoken to Keith and Damien. Damien is 100 caps for Ireland. He's never played against England. It's a great opportunity, you know, to play. Like, those games don't come around. I think it just kind of fitted everywhere and it ticked the boxes. So I think it was just one of those. And he probably wanted to get, you know, minutes into lads who hadn't been playing regular football. Like, as you said, England are ranked 4th in the world. I mean, they're like, albeit, yeah, look, I would be one of them ones to say slow down with England, you know, after their World Cup performance in 18, kind of, you know, going so far, but they didn't really, any good team they played, they got beat by. But they are a very good team, and they've got some exceptional players. You know, look, you can analyse it any way you want, in the sense that you can say, you can take the positives out of it, and you can take the negatives out of it. And I think the people who are, you know, want Ireland to do well and are willing to, you know, stick through it, will give Stephen the benefit of the doubt and the players the benefit of the doubt through this transition, rather than jumping on people's backs saying, oh, it's not good enough. Look, any player who played the other night will know that their performance wasn't to the top of their level, but it's building blocks. We're in a transition. We're not, even you look at Northern Ireland, they're probably a more settled squad. Scotland are, coming together. They've got some very good players. And of course, like Wales is another one who's probably a bit similar to ourselves, that a lot of their players who would have played in Euro 2016 are, getting older and probably, coming to the end of their international careers. But they're a bit like us in a transition as well.
Let's hear from Matt Doherty, speaking after the game, about feeling embarrassed coming off the pitch.
Look, we still have to be confident. We have to keep doing the right things, keep getting in the right positions. Look, I believe that with the hard work that we're doing, that eventually it'll turn around for us in front of the net.
Thank you.
Thanks, Philip. Owen Cowser, do you want to jump in?
Hey Matt, you mentioned there that you just don't believe there's the belief there when the team get into positions. What can be done to change that? Because I'm sure you're practicing and training, but just to do it in matches.
Yeah, obviously you practice and training. Look, people have just got to do it themselves in their own mind. Just believe that when they have the chance that they're gonna score. Have no doubt about it at all. I think it's more of maybe a mentality thing, because we're getting in the positions. Whether we really think that once we're there that the ball's going to go in, or do we really have the belief to maybe make that run into a position that like if you're a bit tired, or do we have the vision to see the run in the first place? So look, it's tough. Like, it's not a nice feeling playing all these games and not scoring any goals. Look, it's everybody, whoever gets the chance, whether it's us from a defenders from a set piece, or a bit of playing in the game. We just need to have that focus and belief that when the chance comes, that we're going to put it in the net.
Yeah. Is it got to the point where when you go a goal behind that, like, you think you're done now, or have we reached then?
No, I wouldn't say for me personally, no, I don't think like that at all. I don't know. I can't answer for the rest of the team, but if we go a goal behind, why would we think we're done? Like, it's only 1-0. But obviously it kind of looks that way because we're not getting back into any games. It's just frustrating, and look, obviously it's disappointing. It's a bit embarrassing I feel a bit embarrassed sometimes when I come off the pitch, because we're just losing games and not scoring goals and conceding goals. So it's not nice.
Well, let's hear from Stephen Kenny reacting to Matt Doherty's comments in the wake of the defeat to England, the 3-0 defeat.
Matt Doherty was saying to us there that he said, sometimes I feel embarrassed coming off the pitch because we're conceding goals and not winning games. Does that kind of talk from a senior player, does that kind of worry you, alarm you, that maybe there's a mindset creeping into the players that they're getting a bit frustrated?
No, it doesn't at all. I'd have to speak to Matt, but no, I don't. That doesn't concern me at all. I think, you'd be alarmed if you weren't disappointed at losing 3-0. I think so we've only conceded one goal in the previous, 120 minutes, 90 minutes and 90 minutes. So no, in all the other games we create chances. That's the first game that we haven't really created chances. And I think just a lot of circumstances connected to personnel being available for that game. For us to beat England, we would need our absolute best team, and then we'd have to play really, really well to do that. We'd probably treat, as you say, Enda Stevens, John Egan and Seamus Coleman going out your back forward to start with, but I don't want to sit here and make excuses. We still had a good team out, and England were a step above us on the night, and they're very good, and I think a lot of players would have gained a lot of experience from that, and it got us. I learned a lot from seeing the players in that environment individually, and I think that was interesting.
Stephen Kenny there, 53106 listeners. Do you want to get involved in the debate about the Republic of Ireland? When Stephen Kenny got the job in April, I kind of felt the Slovakia game was a bonus. That, look, it was all about the World Cup qualification campaign, but it's almost, I wish we'd beaten them on penalties now, because there's a bit of a gloomy atmosphere around the place at the moment. All it takes is one win to sort that out, though.
Yeah, it was fascinating interview from Doherty, because, probably as a manager, you wouldn't like him to be quite as honest. I don't think Kenny was apt to use to repeat the word embarrassing. I think he kind of paraphrased it as disappointed, but maybe Matt Doherty is a kind of a he might be very candid in his chat because I think you can read too much into that. The England game was a friendly game. You know, the players would have liked the opportunity to play England. When that game was set up, we didn't envisage, you know, the circumstances that befell us, and with all these players out, and it became maybe a bit more daunting then. But as a player, you want to be playing England, you know, and Kenny would never be afraid to pitch his teams. You know, you're consistent with when Dundalk could be playing vastly superior opposition in Europe, he'd be going out there and saying they could win, and very often they competed. So he wouldn't be afraid of taking on opposition like that. And Doherty's comments are, I think, they're reflective of the fact that you know, he's been very honest there, and that stuff about, you know, players making runs and not knowing the, you know, the pass. You look at the players that were playing for Ireland; they never really played together. You've O'Dowd on one wing, Corrigan on the other. I'm fairly sure they've never played in that system before. Then you've Ida, who's so inexperienced at this stage, you know, has played very, very little senior football. I think he's a great career ahead of him, but it's. Not only have they not really played together, but like, it's daunting for those players. Like they've the three of those have very, very limited opportunities for Ireland, particularly against top class opposition. And then you put in a midfield that you know, is still trying to find its way. I thought Jeff Hendrick did very well in stages. Alan Brown did well in stages as well, and we shouldn't be getting too downbeat about it. I think like Doherty was. I think if you interviewed another player, he'd say, well, listen, you know, it was a tough night. Things went against us. You know, we gave away a couple of sloppy goals, but, you know, next two games are coming up quickly and we move on. Doherty was just being very honest. And I wouldn't read too much into it. I'd be interested to hear what Shane thinks about the comment he made about he saw things in the players at that level of combat that he noticed, individual things that he personally saw. And is there anything pointed about that, Shane? Because he seems to have maybe, I don't know, like drawn conclusions on some players based on that performance.
Yeah, well, he has now started to get to a stage where, naturally enough, certain players will have gone up the pecking order, but likewise, certain players will have gone down the pecking order. There's a lot of players there who, regardless of it, be it a Slovakia game or be it a friendly or be it the League of Nations games, they've got a good few minutes. And let's be honest, are there a huge amount of players who could say, well, I feel my performances have justified me going up in Stephen's estimations? I wouldn't think there probably are a huge amount. I mean, peripherally, Daryl Horgan has probably been the one who's come in from kind of really outside what would have been seen as the starting 11, or even outside the squad, really. And he is one. But aside from him, it's kind of hard to find too many who have enhanced their reputations in the game since Stephen has taken over.
So, David, like, I'm looking at the players who've been called up to play for the squad, rather, for the Wales game. Jason Knight, Darragh Lenihan, Kieran Clark, Josh Cullen, Jack Byrne and Ryan Manning also in the squad. Is this the moment for them now to show what they can do?
Well, I think looking back at the last games last month, Sean Maguire and Daryl Horgan were called in late. They were called up through, I think it was the COVID malarkey. And then they ended up playing in the games. So I think for any, like the lads you've mentioned, Kieran Clark, Josh Cullen, Knight, any of them, Jack Byrne, Ryan Manning, any of them that come in, it seems to me that if you get in and you get your first session and you're bang at it and you're doing well and you're moving, like, I think you give yourself a great opportunity of playing, and which for me from the outside looks very positive, that if you come in and you're performing well in training, then Stephen is going to give you an opportunity. So like for these lads who weren't in the initial squad, like, it's a massive, massive opportunity. As Shane said there, Stephen will have made, some calls on players, though there'll be a few that he'll think, I need them, and others then he'll have question marks over, which is normal. If some fellas aren't doing what he wants in games or training sessions, it's a huge opportunity for anyone who gets called into the squad to, put a marker down, to make a stake, to stay in that squad and to get some minutes and, obviously get some caps.
Have you seen much of Knight, David?
I've not seen a whole load of him. What I have seen of him, I think he's very tidy, he's very good, but then it almost comes back to what Johnny said about, Adam Ida. He's inexperienced at this level, and, as much as you can play the underages for Ireland, which is, it's fantastic to see these lads come through and develop, but when you get to, the men's senior team, it's a different ball game, it is a lot harder, and it's, you're playing against the best players that are available to the country you're playing against. So, look, I want to see them do well. If they do well, that means Ireland do well. So I hope they all do well, and please God, we get some better results.
I think he's...
JD, I'll tell you what else it has. It has the knock-on effect, and I know obviously Stephen can't think this way, and Stephen just has to do what's best. But it's a pity that we're having to pull so many from the 21 squad at the moment, because the 21s are in a situation at the moment where they're absolutely fighting tooth and nail to try and qualify for the championships themselves, you know. And obviously every time it's great for an individual to get a call up, but I'm sure 21 management are looking at it, and they're kind of gritting their teeth because they're losing some really, really important players for at real crunch time within their group as well, you know.
I think, you know, what's kind of encouraging is the way Kenny has behaved in all of this. He's had his share of press conferences, and the spotlight on him when he was manager of Dundalk and manager of the under-21s is absolutely nothing compared to this. And he's there taking a question from Paul O'Hare. And Kenny's a very, you know, he studies what he's going to say. He thinks about it. He often pauses to give himself time. And he was thrown this question in which one of his players essentially said he was embarrassed. So he had to deal with that. And I think he's had to deal with an awful lot. And one of the things that would have been pointed out as a potential, you know, problem with his appointment or his reign as Ireland manager is that how did he deal with the pressure at Shamrock Rovers? How did he deal with pressurised situations as a manager? Would he be able to deal with it? And I think by and large, he's been very laid back. He's kind of come through what's been a very, very trying few months on so many levels. I think he's come through well. And he's going to have a big issue now with Duffy, I think, because he is going to, as much as injuries are causing us, you know, big problems at the back, Duffy's performances are a massive concern, and he's probably soon going to have to make a big call there.
The 5-3-1-0-6 lads, we're at the same level as Wales and England, beat them 3-0. We can't afford to lose anyone from our first 11, so we need to get realistic of the situation that we're in. Give Stephen Kenny plenty of time. That is from John. Listening to OTB discuss Stephen Kenny is like watching Fox News talk about Trump. Kenny is out of his depth, but OTB refused to see it. That is from Pork. Pork, I think that's a bit harsh.
Well, but even so, right? Even if like as you said there, that fella's claiming that Stephen's out of his depth, that's totally irrelevant. Right, I don't think he is. I think he's, you know what I mean. Of course, look, he'll want better results, but at the same time, Stephen is the manager. He's there for the long haul. So people have to. It's easy to be negative. You know, we have to get behind this group of players. We have to get behind this management staff because we want to see Ireland do well. It can't always be negative from everyone. You know. Right, that's my little rant.
On that though, David, do you see passages in our play that would worry you in terms of, like, I think it's somewhat different if a player or a coach who has that kind of that eye for the changing of patterns in a game and the breakdown where Ireland lose the ball and stuff. Have you seen stuff that would worry you? I wouldn't be so much worried about the fact that we haven't scored a goal in 6 games. Fair enough, that's a problem, but I think we'll get over that. We're creating chances. Have you seen stuff sort of defensively? You know, for example, the second goal England got was Christie gave the ball away poorly, but you know there was a massive overlap then, and we kind of showed the ball to Grealish to make that pass. Have you seen things defensively or in terms of our defensive midfield play that will worry you?
Not necessarily, because I think a lot of it, as much as some of the defending is always going to be kind of a decision down to the player. Do you know, I think it's with Sancho's goal, right? Like you look at Jeff, can you get kind of closer to him? Can you show him the sideline? Don't leave him back inside. That's Jeff's decision at that moment. It's easy to encourage certain things that, you know, if you find, but like you'd be then looking at, you know, you could stop and step back and look at like, well, it's off the second phase, off a corner. Where are we? Why is Jeff in this position? Do you know what I mean? How come once the ball has gone out that we're not like a solid back four kind of in line so that we can pick up? You can overanalyze everything. Shane probably does it like morning, noon and night. The only thing that would concern me was with the other night is, like, obviously I was on OTB the following day talking about, it's just at times, yes, I want to see us playing out from the back. I want to see us playing, you know, this attractive, better style of football. Fine, I've no problem with that. But you've got to know when to do it and when it needs to go long, when we need to squeeze up. And at times, like, I know you've highlighted Shane Duffy there. At times, Duffy was kind of playing the ball to Cyrus. And you're, like, in my mind, as I'm watching, I'm thinking, like, what are you giving the ball there for? What can he do with this, you know, that you can't do? And it's kind of, you know, almost overplaying. Like, do you know what I mean? Too many passes that, like, England, they left us knocking around for a while and then they'd start to press. But they were just trying to trap us. And then you end up, like, just like as you said, we lost possession far too much, but it was a case of identifying when to play and then just saying, do you know what, lads, like Randolph, put the ball down, next 5 lads, let's just try and hit him up front and play off him. Do you know what I mean? Try and pin England back a bit and then start to play out a bit more. But you've, like, I imagine Stephen, Keith and Damien are kind of saying that as well. But the players, you've got to identify it on the pitch. Like, just go, we're under a bit of pressure here. Let's just go long for 5 or 10 minutes, leave the game, settle down, and we can build ourselves into it so that we can almost earn the right to knock it about.
Just on that, I like when they played with, for example, when they played Sweden in the under-21 game in Tallow, they were 1-0 down or whatever, and Sweden pressed very high, they pressed very hard, and they had an out ball to Ida, which Kelleher was more than happy to play as that outlet, and eventually that pace up front, El Bouzetti was playing I think that night as well, they had that pace and Parrott kind of turned it on and they were able to basically change it up. I think on the other night, Ida's just not able to do that at the moment. He's not going to be out muscling Harry Maguire, and he's going to struggle with that out ball, and it just probably wasn't there. And I don't think it's necessarily a philosophy that we're not going to play the ball long, because you have to be pragmatic. Like, one system is not going to suit every game. I think at the moment McGoldrick, who would have been able to do that, just isn't there, and it was probably, well, right,
he's gone.
Yeah, that option's not there. So we'll I mean, as you mentioned, then when England did press, and even when they didn't particularly press, the likes of Duffy just gave the ball away, and it was straight back to square one. And I imagine that fed into how demoralised sort of Doherty was after us, because he's like, well, what's going to happen here? And even Doherty himself looked under pressure as well in terms of passing the ball.
Okay, we've got to take a break.
It's always the hard one as well. Do you know when I can't remember what game it was. Was it the Denmark game, obviously, when we got hammered? McLean did the interview after the game. It's always very difficult when you catch someone right after a game, they do an interview, because their emotions are high. You know, regardless if we had beaten 1-0, 3-0, 5-0 or 8-0, you're going to be disappointed that you've lost. 1, lost the game. 2, you're going to be disappointed because you've lost to England. Like, Matt will know a lot of those players from playing, with some of them, against some of them, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, I think his vocabulary was poor. That would be the first one I'd pick him on. Like, embarrassed. You should never be embarrassed coming off the pitch. I don't think, like you can be disappointed, you can be frustrated. I think embarrassed was probably the wrong word. And then, as you said, then when I think it was Paul was his name, caught him, like Stephen with the question, that's just typical like journalism, where you kind of catch someone with the unknown. Like Stephen's kind of like, Stephen's probably already thinking of his answers, like they're going to ask me about the loss, building up for the game, was I happy? And then next he says, well, one of your senior players has said he was embarrassed. And he's kind of going, what? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a tough one.
Have you been in that position before, David, where you've given an interview after, say, playing for Hull, and I wish I hadn't said that?
No. Because I'm articulated and educated. No, I always think about what I'm saying. You have to, because it'll come back inevitably. Come back to bite you. You've got to be careful when I did speak about a player before. Certain player at Hull wasn't pulling his weight, and I let it be known. But I had a massive argument with him in the change room, and then I said it in the press. The manager wasn't happy I said in the press, but at that moment I felt it needed to be he wasn't pulling his weight and needed to come out. But look, you've got to think about it. You don't want to, like, even as prime example, I'm on here talking about Ireland, like, bar some of the younger generation lads, I've played with the majority of the squad. I know them personally, I speak to them, I have to come on here, and if I have to criticise them, I have to criticise them. If I have to praise them, I have to praise them. But you have to think about what you're going to say, And
the problem Stephen has at the moment, obviously, is because the results have been quite similar, the line of questioning after the result is going to be quite similar, and then he's got to try and give an answer that makes reasonable sense while also not sounding identical to the answer that he gave the last time. And that is a difficult balancing act, because you will easily get trapped in a corner of just sounding like a broken record, and he must be dreading the press conferences straight after a game, after a negative result. I know, when I went through poor results at Galway, you would try and gather your thoughts before you'd walk into the dressing room and that kind of stuff. But inevitably, when the questions stay coming after a poor result and after a poor result, it is very hard to keep batting them away and keep finding that positive line of thinking. And I suppose maybe Matt Doherty is thinking, okay, well, I can't stay coming with the same rhetoric of, we're getting there and it's a building process. And maybe he's trying to shake things up a little bit, maybe naively a little bit, in terms of trying to show a bit of leadership by being a bit harder on themselves. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we got to take a break here. Maybe it is just the emotion, as David was saying just after the match. Wexford going out of the championship in hurling. 12 points for Wexford. Clare 119. Tony Kelly with the goal for Clare. 53106. Plenty of text coming in about the Republic of Ireland. We'll get to them after this.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. New normal, same old football. Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
This week on Taking Stock, we assess the challenge of driving global environmental changes while protecting those communities most exposed to change. And as Christine Lagarde warns about the particular nature of this recession, just how far will the European Central Bank go in supporting the Eurozone through COVID-19?
Taking Stock with Vincent Wall.
Thanks to Skillnet Ireland.
Listen and subscribe to the podcast now or tune in Sunday morning at 10.
On News Talk.
In the real world, no two people are the same. So at Liberty Insurance, we thought, why are all car insurance policies the same? Go to libertyinsurance.ie. Put yourself in the driving seat. Only want the basic cover to get you on the road? Or do you like the security of a few extras? With Liberty Insurance, you make the choices and only pay for what you need. Liberty Insurance. Ready for the real world. Minimum cover refers to third-party only insurance. Additional extras are subject to qualifying criteria and additional costs apply. Acceptance criteria, terms and conditions apply. Liberty Seguros, Compañía de Seguros y Reyes Seguros S.A.A. trading as Liberty Insurance is authorised by the General Directorate of Insurance and Pension Funds in Spain and is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland for conduct of business rules.
There are plenty of reasons to get an official Volkswagen service, from the expertise of a Volkswagen master technician to the confidence in using only Volkswagen genuine parts. However, to the majority of drivers, only one reason really matters: what you get when you bring it all together, an official service history. In fact, 78% of Irish drivers would pay more for your Volkswagen if it has a full Volkswagen service history. Help protect your resale value and keep your Volkswagen a Volkswagen. Book your classic service from only €179 at volkswagenservice.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
In a world where healthy eating is more important than ever, snack time for super kids across the nation hangs in the balance.
Well, fear not, parents of Ireland. Out of the darkness comes sunshine. New Avonmore Super Milk Strawberry Minis are here to save the day. Flavoured with a hint of natural strawberry and packed with calcium and sunshine vitamin D, they're the yummy, healthy drink to give your super kids. New Avonmore Super Milk Strawberry Minis. Super for them.
Easy for you.
Get the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE 5